Welcome to our webinar, Metaverse for Financial Services. My name is Hassan, and I am the founder and CEO of MoneeMint. I'm delighted to be joined with Alpesh. So Alpesh is the CEO and founder of Fintricity and a bunch of other companies. I'll let Alpesh do the introduction for himself, and then we'll start from there. Alpesh, over to you. Thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone, I'm Alpesh Doshi. I'm a technologist by background, been working in technology for over 20 years, more than 20 years. I always say 20 because more than that looks a bit old. Been working in the blockchain space for about 7-8 years, and obviously a lot of the metaverse conversations really center around leveraging blockchain and NFTs as an element of that. Worked in financial services for similar kind of time, so have good experience on that. And currently we're working on metaverse projects, which is so therefore this session is very topical in terms of potential strategies and opportunities for financial services companies.
Cool. Thank you so much, Alpesh. So I'll just talk about MoneeMint in a quick 2-minute time, and then we'll just dig right into the topic. So not sure how many of you know about MoneeMint, but MoneeMint, we're launching a digital Islamic bank. We're focusing on obviously the Islamic piece, but we're also focusing on the ethical piece. So we're opening our target market to sort of a wider audience. So currently, MoneeMint, we're going through testing and development, and we're really excited about what we're building, and we want you guys to be part of our journey. So please do sign up to our wait list and sort of hear more about what we're doing within MoneeMint. So I'll dig right into the topic. So Alpesh, Metaverse, where do we see? I think talk about what Metaverse is in a high level for some of those that don't know what it is, and then we can sort of talk about the different use cases and the opportunity that the Metaverse now has for fintechs and also the conventional banking players.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Metaverse was coined by, I think it was Phil Stevenson in his novel called Cryptonomicon many years ago. If you've never read it, you should read it. It's really good. And the thing about the Metaverse, it moves away from 2-year linear interactions to 3D interactions on a web. And so I think and a lot of the things that you use are using headsets. As I'm sure everybody knows, Meta or Facebook is looking at Oculus and providing Oculus as the way to interact with that kind of environment. And it's a different way of interacting, it's a different way of engaging, it's a different way of buying and selling services. And the implications to that for financial services are quite profound, because a lot of the big brands out there are all going into that space, and one of the elements is they want to sell products and services into that space. So therefore payment is a really interesting use case that almost every financial services firms has to consider. But also, building new business models around that. So one of the ones that we've seen in the Metaverse is buying virtual land, and there's a whole bunch of different companies that some of you may have heard of, Decentraland, who basically was selling off virtual land, and that has gone really crazy. So, I mean, if we take how the web is developed from Web 1.0, which is static text, Web 2.0 is interactive, being able to buy and sell products and services and be able to pay for things. What we're talking about around Web3 in the Metaverse is a new virtual economy. And the drivers are things like decentralization, leveraging blockchain technologies, moving away from just read and write stuff, which is what we're doing in Web 1 and Web 2, to actually owning part of a virtual a metaverse. So if you are in the metaverse, you're not necessarily you probably will have an avatar, so you could be yourself or you could be somebody else. And if you imagine anything that you can do in the real world, real world, physical world, people are looking at those things in the virtual world, buying and selling goods, doing concerts, playing games, playing virtual games. There's so many different areas that we're seeing that are emerging in terms of use cases. So it's an exciting time in the next level of development of web technologies. One of the key things I think has made this happen is things like bandwidth availability. You know, the use of broadband and bandwidth. You can actually do a metaverse on your phone. So the processing power on your phone is available now. You know, a few years ago, really couldn't do it. It's not there. Obviously, the bandwidth and the broadband with 5G there in some places around the country in the world also makes a difference in getting a reasonably good metaverse experience. If you then combine that with the world of blockchain and NFTs and digital assets, you know, that also is now coming together in this virtual world as well. So there are a lot of different things of converging into how metaverses will become a thing. And all the big banks, so Standard Chartered, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, all of them are talking about the size of the market in the metaverse in the hundreds of billions in the next 5 years. So it's a new economy, it's a new market, it's a new set of services and products, which everybody's got to think about.
Thank you for that, Alpesh. So, Alpesh, obviously, we've seen the metaverse being around for longer than what it is now. Actually, you know, you've got Sims, you know, all these gaming world that's happened. But now I think people are trying to realize the actual use case of the metaverse in sort of a commercial context. And a lot of stuff is now happening in the financial services sector. You know, we're seeing Goldman Sachs and Citi, as you mentioned. You know, they're exploring sort of branch options within their metaverse. What do you see happen with the conventional banks and also the fintechs over the next couple of years of enhancing their customer experience and serving their customers virtually through the metaverse?
You know, I think if you look at the kinds of services and products that you could take to the virtual world, so if we take payments as an example, right? Payments in the metaverse. If you take what we're, you know, some of the stuff we're working on is brands, you know, well-known luxury brands like Gucci going into the metaverse as a simple example. You know, they want to have a presence in the metaverse. They want to create tokens and NFTs on products that they have branded as, in this case, a Gucci product. You need to be able to buy and sell those things. You need to be able to, you know, you're buying and selling those things, not with fiat currency, but with tokens. So the implications to the financial services industry around actually being able to buy and sell an NFT converted from fiat currency for a well-known brand is actually becoming a really early use case that all the banks need to think about. And how are they going to manage that in the metaverse, and how are they going to, for example, if you've got a Visa card as the example, you convert your Visa or MasterCard, you're converting your cash into a token, which you're buying a virtual good, a Gucci virtual good on a metaverse, is a really simple but a powerful and what do you call it, opportunistic use case.
Thank you, Alpesh. I think Alpesh, or you know, one of the key things that I see as an opportunity, especially within the fintech space, actually, obviously because a lot of these digital challenger banks or payment service providers, you know, the likes of Revolut, Monzo, what they're working on is obviously, you know, their support system is on a live chat, and sometimes that can be really, really slow. And I think one potential use case that I see within the metaverse is actually providing that customer experience where you have a branch within the metaverse. I mean, it would be so cool to see sort of a Monzo branch in the metaverse, where customers can have that look and feel of actually walking into a branch and seeing, you know, and being served by a virtual customer agent within the branch. Do you see sort of the bigger players such as HSBC, Barclays, falling into that sort of use case, and you know, do you really see that there's a need or a scope for them to actually do that, especially with the number of branch visits declining over the last couple of years? You know, what's your thoughts on that?
To be honest, I think it's a lot of it's going to be to do with your age, whether you're a millennial, whether you're you know, whether you're a Gen Z or Gen Y or whatever. I think a lot of that's going to be driven by the age that you are and how tech savvy you are. You know, if you're my son who's 17, you know, he's used to virtual worlds and he spends his life on that. He's never been in, well, sorry, he has been into a bank branch, but for him, it'll be natural to go online to a branch in a metaverse, and it'll be like normal for him. So I think with the younger people, with the 18-year-olds and above, obviously, you can be 16 or 14 to have a bank account, but the important thing is that the young, that this generation is going to be used to it. So for them, actually having a virtual experience with an agent in a branch in a virtual world is not going to be averse to that. So I think that will definitely be something which financial services companies will adopt, I think, to serve that particular segment of the market.
And we're seeing a lot of these sort of the corporate banks. I know recently Citi has started a project on the metaverse. I think from sort of a product point of view, obviously you touched point on the payments and converting your sort of the fiat currency into a virtual currency and buying goods off the metaverse. But looking at that from a retail context or from looking at from a regulatory context, do you really see that the regulators nowadays would actually take on the metaverse and look to sort of regulate that very heavily? Because if you look at it right now, Bitcoin is not regulated in the UK. But do you see the metaverse becoming sort of a regulated industry over the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a good point. A good question. Some of the people on this call who I know probably better answer that, Trevor. but I think the regulatory environment has been a bane to the crypto world and the NFT world for many years. And I think the challenge with the regulatory environment, number one, a metaverse is countryless. That's the first big problem. Secondly, regulators are very slow in adapting. So as I'm sure you've seen in the press, only in the last 6 months have the SEC, maybe last year, started publishing things about crypto and NFTs, just actually talking about it and legitimizing it. I mean, if you look at UK regulators and the Bank of England, Bank of England talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. The reality is there's always a lag, a reasonable lag. I mean, we're talking years of lag between regulators and regulatory authorities like the FCA and the SEC thinking about how the metaverse is going to adapt, and companies doing this in the metaverse and providing products and services. So it's interesting, if you're a new fintech, like MoneeMint is. My view is you just do it and see what happens. I mean, it's probably risky, but having a chat with the regulator and say, look, this is what we're going to do in this metaverse, and this is how we're going to provide our service, and we're going to allow payments for that. I think being bold and being forward thinking, I think will drive the regulators to pay attention and potentially even do something about it. So regulators are always a laggard. They're always a laggard, and there's nothing you can do about that. The reality is the perception of how they see this. How do they see somebody on a metaverse doing a financial transaction is frankly fairly open. I don't think they know what the implication is.
So interesting. Trevor has mentioned that the FCA is a metaverse sandbox. It took them years to develop a fintech sandbox. So it actually be interesting to see when they come up with something like that. Because I know, and let's talk about sort of the investment that's coming into the metaverse industry. We say, we would like to call this like the new industry. From an investment point of view, where we're seeing a lot of people spend millions and millions of pounds on, buying artwork and virtual images and characters on the metaverse. But from a venture capitalist point of view or from an investment point of view, where do you see that going in the next in the short run? Because I think it's a little bit like Bitcoin. When Bitcoin first came out, people were not buying into it. It took a lot of time for people to start investing in Bitcoin, and obviously people now come and say, "Oh, we regret not investing in Bitcoin." But what do you see happening in the investment landscape and the value of metaverse being in the everyday lives of people?
So you got to think about what kind of investment. Are you talking about a VC investment specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, with the number of innovative venture capital funds and the amount people are raising in these crypto funds and NFT funds, I mean, all the tier one VCs are now doing it. You know, Andreessen Horowitz as one. They are all, and there's a load of other ones now building specific funds in this area for metaverses for crypto. And I think it's just going to grow. You know, I think people have realized this is going to happen. Unlike the early days of crypto, and Hassan have known each other for so many times, right from the early days of crypto in 2016, 17, it was like, you know, you trying to find a VC who understood what you were doing was like, no, it's scammy, we're not doing it. I think there's definitely been a reversal of that recently, and you've seen so many VCs raise huge funds, you know, in the billions of dollars, to invest big time into not just metaverse companies, but NFT companies, infrastructure companies. So, you know, I did some mentoring for a company in building stuff in the metaverse in India, and one of the things they're looking at is identity, and looking at how do you do identity in the metaverse, and what does that look like, and how do you build that in. One of the projects that we're working on is absolutely looking at that, is how do you actually provide that link between the offline world, and offline I also mean the Web 2 world, where you have, you know, a digital presence, and the metaverse world, and how do you provide that identity transformation between one and the other. So, and that's just one of a whole suite of products and services that are emerging, where investment is going to go in big time. If we think about NFT specifically and think about the blockchain networks, just as an example, without being, you know, discriminatory, Polygon is one. You know, they've raised $450 million in the last few months, and there are thousands of young guys building applications on Polygon, which will be in the metaverse. And you name it, it's happening. So for me, you know, we're seeing large amounts of investment going in, and actually no resistance. So one of the key things is that it's gone away from skepticism, which it once was, to actually embracing these changes, embracing that this is happening and we need to invest now for that growth.
Interesting. So one other question, which Alpesh, you know, it was going to come to you. Where do you see Fintricity playing a big part in the metaverse? And I've known Alpesh for many years. You know, we've worked together on different stuff. You know, we've bounced off ideas. And I know Alpesh is a really big thinker and a doer. So Alpesh, in all your ventures that you're working on, you know, you're doing some, you're building ventures yourself. Where do you see you being actively involved within the metaverse?
I mean, there are still core infrastructure pieces that need to happen. So, you know, if we talk about NFTs, if we talk about payments, if we talk about layer 2 blockchains and using those to build apps, these are all opportunities. Data. So one of the biggest things that we're working around metaverse is, well, metaverse, we have a project we're working on around data in metaverses, is actually all the data that throws off. So being able to leverage that data for many different elements of providing products and services. So if we have an analogy of that, if you think about e-commerce and we talk about social media and we talk about marketing and social media marketing, if you think of and take that into the metaverse, there's a huge amount of data that's generated over and above doing a click on a page and an interaction to a metaverse having an interaction with groups of people on a show or in a product, or for example, let's mention Gucci earlier, right? So if you imagine having that interaction today, you have Gucci in social media and you may do an @tweet with Gucci, for example, but on the metaverse, you're going to have interaction with Gucci people in quotes and Gucci products. Just imagine how much data that's going to throw off. So you're actually talking about a next level of metaverse media marketing. Hey, that's a good phrase. That I just made that one up. Metaverse media marketing. There you go. I'm gonna copyright that one. Metaverse media marketing. So that I think is huge. And to be honest, I don't see a lot of people looking at the data side on that stuff. There's a lot of people saying we're going to create NFTs and let's create some NFT stuff, and I think that's there. But infrastructure around NFTs absolutely is still wide open. I'm seeing, the kind of, I'm just trying to think of just frame the project that we're working on. One of the projects, which is listing shortly on one of the exchanges. It's going to bring together different communities. It's going to bring together, for example, the dance community. It's bringing together concerts. It's bringing together brands. So all of these companies need services and products. So as you have social media management tools, you're going to need metaverse management tools that someone like a Gucci uses in the metaverse itself, right? Those kind of things don't exist. Those kind of things are going to have to exist. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you a flavor of some of the areas that I see, which are really in terms of opportunity for me and building these types of new products and services. That's some of the things that I can see are definitely market opportunities.
Interesting. Obviously, off the back of what you've just said, there's still a long way for the metaverse to sort of come in into sort of the mass market opportunity, especially within sort of the new industries such as retail, financial services. Where we're seeing a lot of metaverse stuff happening around sort of NFTs and people buying NFTs, selling them on the market. So creating sort of a virtual market. But I think right now, we're still sort of a long way away from having sort of that mass adoption within the different industries. And coming on to sort of coming back into sort of the banking world, how soon do you think the adoption of metaverse and what is the importance of metaverse for the banks and insurance companies to sort of embed in their day-to-day operations, especially when it comes to that customer experience, or internally within their business functions? What is that importance for them?
It goes back to the segment of the market, right? If you want to be in that segment of the market, and that's where people are. I mean, MoneeMint is focusing on a specific segment of society in terms of getting users. Your audience, what you're doing is a perfect set of customers would go to the metaverse now. They're going to go to the metaverse. So thinking about, and let's be honest, if you think about legacy, the large fintechs, large financial services companies, they're always slow at doing this. I mean, they are really slow. I'm seeing this. Actually seeing in some countries. So I think in Korea, some bankers actually set this stuff up. They set this stuff up in one of the metaverses. So it's already starting to happen. I think Western, let's call them Western financial services and financial institutions, are a lot more conservative. But I just found the reference. So it's a bank called Kookmin Bank based in South Korea, have built a financial town on GatherTown. Right, that's phenomenal, right? And the good thing is so it's interesting how, if you think about crypto and NFTs and blockchain, the maturity cycle of when banks, let's take banks in as an example, who've started to adopt these things, it's taken a long time. It's taken 5, 6, 7 years for banks to go crypto. It's a thing. We've got to think about it. Bitcoin, it's a thing. Bitcoin, Goldman's just issued an ETF or something, right? It's taken a long time. Whereas the metaverse, the cycle has been really short. We're talking, Meta, Facebook said it, a year ago, maybe? Can't remember when it was, but it was a year ago. Since then, just one example here, this bank is actually going into the metaverse and building stuff. Right, that's such a short cycle compared to crypto and blockchain over the last 7 years. This is like within a year, people are doing this. So I think, but also financial institutions have become better. They have become better because the competition from fintechs that have taken loads of market share from different product lines, they're going, oh shit, we can't just wait anymore. We've got to do something. So, but yes, it's still very, very early. The question really boils down to what value will it be for a particular organization to go into. Like, for sake of argument, right? Let's say Goldman. I'm not picking anybody, but let's say Goldman Sachs. What value is it for Goldman to go into a metaverse and do stuff? Is there? I wouldn't say so. But if you're a fintech like MoneeMint or PayPal or Revolut, sorry, Revolut on a MoneeMint call, but any of those fintechs or payment fintechs, those are all gonna be coming in. they're all going to come in, and I think that's where we're seeing the massive growth.
Cool, thank you. I'd also just want to put in something over here to the audience as well. If you do have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to use the chat function. I think Alpesh can also read the chat. I'm also reading the chat, so we'll fully questions out there. Alpesh, so coming back onto sort of fintech and sort of MoneeMint. So what we're looking at, obviously, we're looking at different customer experiences within MoneeMint and how we can support our customers. Obviously, with the segment that we're working on, we're looking at the Islamic market. We're also looking at the ethical market, and being in the Islamic space, for example, there is not much competition within the retail side, purely because there's only one major player in the market. And even then, their onboarding process and all that is really, really slow. I hope I don't have anyone from that bank on the call, but I think for us, the really good use case for us is actually to create sort of a virtual banking experience where customers can enter MoneeMint branch and actually get served by one of our agents in the virtual world, where we take care of the identity, so you don't have to prove your identity to us, and we help with start with so much the basic questions, but also like the very advanced conversations. And I think that's where we see there's a lot of value, especially within the fintech sector, actually. And I think one of the things that we'll see happen in the near future is obviously these bigger players with their legacy systems and processes. I think we'll see a lot of buying out happening within the metaverse companies, where they'll either be bought out by the banks, or there'll be a JVs and stuff like that. Alpesh, what are your thoughts on that? Especially with what we're seeing with fintechs, a lot of these big banks are now buying fintechs and as an additional product line. Do you see this happening with technology such as the metaverse or the Web3?
In terms of what's the question? So you getting bought?
Yeah, so no, not MoneeMint getting bought. We're talking about the technology itself. So do you reckon, do you see these technology companies or these metaverse companies being bought out by these banks or financial institutions instead of them sort of building out that technology?
Not yet. I mean, maybe in a few years' time. I can't imagine it's going to happen anytime soon. Maybe some of the sort of recent fintechs might do that. Definitely, I think that if there's a traction in the market with a particular fintech, like let's say MoneeMint, and you get traction in a metaverse, and you're generating large amounts of transactions, and you're doing NFT payments and that kind of thing, I can see the competitive advantage if you're in a particular world that you get bought. Somebody want to buy it, so I can definitely see that. But I think we're just too early, right? We're just too early. I think maybe in a year's time that you might be in a position to buy stuff, they will buy stuff. But I think it's still a bit early, right? Any bank is going to look at these things from a perspective of, is there a competitive advantage for us buying something like that? Ultimately, I mean, that's the question. Is there some unique USP? Are you in it? So let's say I mentioned GatherTown as an example. Let's say MoneeMint got into GatherTown and you started generating tens or hundreds of millions of revenue on the back of that. That's worth buying. You can't make that. You're going to buy it. So I think that's the way that people are going to see it. Sure.
Alpesh, do you have any questions for me? I've been asking you these questions, but now I think I'll pass it on to you.
I guess my question to you: you're one of those young. I don't know whether you're a Gen Z or a millennial. I don't know. Well, I can never remember what the sort of categorization is. I mean, you tell me, right? You're one of those young.
I'm a Gen Z now.
Gen Z, I don't know what the hell, right? What are you seeing from all your mates and all the people, and you hear about Metaverse? What do they think about participating in the Metaverse? Do they,
I think I've got friends in the metaverse. I know you probably know some of them actually. I've got some friends who are actually doing some great stuff in the metaverse. They're buying NFTs, selling NFTs, creating NFTs as well. But I think from our generation, I think the point is the understanding of what the metaverse is, apart from the element of the gaming world. Because when I talk to people about the metaverse and what they think, they sort of think about, oh, artists selling their art, or the gaming world. But actually, because there's not a real adoption within the different areas of the different markets, we're not seeing that uptake just yet. And I think until we see the probable use case happening, we won't have that big adoption of the metaverse. And again, coming on to sort of these NFTs and buying NFTs, people are spending millions of pounds on that. But again, is it something that us Gen Z or us millennial Gen Zs sort of find valuable? Will we put £1 million on a virtual drawing that has we probably think that has no future at the moment, or it's too early to adopt, or will we put that £1 million and buy an asset that's actually got worth that is actually worth something? So it's really, really early, and again, it's all about the use case, and especially when it comes to ours and what we think and what I think as a Gen Z. My biggest use case is obviously the financial services sector. It's actually serving the customers from an older or serving our older customers through the metaverse, and actually still having that branch element, rather than saying we're just going to be on live chat, phone call, and stuff like that. We're really opening up onto that. And I think that's something that we're looking to explore over the next coming future.
So being a Gen Z, right, what would compel you to go, what would compel you and all the people to go into the metaverse? What would be, what would say, actually, if this happened, we would go on? What would that be?
I think it's actually the turn or the value of the metaverse. Again, it's all about the use case. So, for example, us Gen Zs, we're really into fashion, right? So, we love our Gucci's, our Pradas, and Burberry's and stuff, right? So the question would actually be, if I was to shop, if Gucci was to bring something onto the metaverse, what value would that bring to me? Can I go and see the product in the metaverse, in a virtual reality world, and actually explain it? I think that is one unique use case that will attract the Gen Zs, especially when it comes to online shopping. We're moving away from the high street and coming into the online, but now online is now moving into the metaverse as well. So I think that's one of the major use cases that I see as an opportunity for me to sort of be part of the metaverse, taking away obviously the financial services part of it, but on an everyday basis, a big part of it will actually be the shopping element of it. Actually going into these stores, these virtual stores, and having that store experience rather than going online and just clicking on a button, add to cart, pay. And I think that really will bring value to our generation of people.
Yeah,
I say my generation.
Yeah, but no, the thing is, if you think about people like brands like Gucci, and a lot of luxury brands, there's an opportunity at the moment that I got looking at, and what they're doing is they provide they provide shopping areas for luxury brands, online physical shopping. Yep. So like you can get outlet stores for buying Gucci stuff. I don't know if there are Gucci outlet stores, but whatever, luxury brands. And they're looking at creating a metaverse for their luxury brands. So it's interesting.
I think we'll see adoption on that side, and we'll see a lot of adoption coming in from a lot of these big brands to entice their customers to sort of come in and be attracted to the brand more. And especially with the look and feel of a Gucci store or Prada store, people sort of tend to move away from now in-store shopping. But actually, when it comes to the luxury brands, people are shopping more inside the luxury brands compared to the likes of Next or TK Maxx or one of these sort of normal retailers. And I think that's where we'll see a lot of value being added onto that. There is a question in here from Feroz Saad. Seems interesting, as I was involved investing in crypto. So the question around is, how does it make, as per the entire discussion, it seems like there's a virtual and transactions taking place would be virtual. How does it make any use case which is adopted? For example, we use fiat currency to invest in cryptos, but use crypto for any transaction which is virtual and not tangible. Just trying to explore and think more about it. Alpesh, really touch point on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about buying and selling stuff on a metaverse, if you're buying and selling a product or a service. So, for example, if MoneeMint sets up on the metaverse in a particular area and you're buying a virtual product in fiat currency, let's say in euro or dollars, how does that work? Because the challenge is, where is the acquiring? If you have the metaverse and then you have the buyer and the seller, and then you have the card. So you're providing the card. Let's say I have a MoneeMint card and I'm buying a virtual good in fiat currency from Gucci in the metaverse. How does the payments work there? It's interesting to think about. If it's not crypto, it's a fiat payment. How does that work? Do you have a store? Are you a merchant? And can you put your merchant acquiring? If a Gucci's there, they're a merchant. Do they put a way of buying? Do they have a virtual a merchant account paying fiat? And when you walk, when you and somebody wants to pay with a MoneeMint card on the metaverse, who are they paying? So are they paying Gucci? Are they paying the metaverse operator? And how does that work? How does it actually work? Who's taking the payment? So, and how do you authenticate it? So one of the things around physical payments, even online payments, there's a bunch of authentication that happens. Right? You might get a text message saying, whatever, make a payment. Well, how does that work in a metaverse? Because there are so many different metaverses. So it's an interesting problem. How would that work from a regulatory and compliance and AML KYC perspective when two people are in a metaverse, want to do a transaction in fiat?
Interesting. And I think coming on to the point of obviously the risk element of the metaverse, we're seeing where there's still a long way to go for that risk to sort of be eliminated, or not eliminated, but minimized on a high scale. And as with sort of what happened with Bitcoin, when there's been a lot of scams happening on the Bitcoin, are we going to see? And I think this is one of the questions for the regulators that may be in the call. Is this something that we're still going to see happen in the metaverse? And if so, how do you think the retailer, or in our case, Gucci and the customers sort of protect themselves from this happening? And also coming on to the question from Feroz, is how do I get my product which is virtual? Also comes to that whole transaction flow. So obviously keeping the customer secure, keeping the merchant secure, but also if someone buys the product, how does that product get virtually delivered to the customer?
So if you imagine a virtual good basically is implemented on a blockchain with some kind of NFT or a token, and you're going to store it on a wallet. You're going to have a crypto wallet which potentially is linked to that particular metaverse. So I mentioned Polygon earlier. Just take the example, right? I have a Polygon wallet. That's it. You built an app on top of Polygon, which is an Ethereum buy, sell in Ether, and your virtual good will be in that metaverse. It might only be in that metaverse. So you need to build a wallet, and you need to have a wallet which has access to the metaverse. So you give the metaverse access to the particular wallet that you have that stores the virtual good. Now, all of that has to be done, right? All of that has to be built. It doesn't happen. So, it's actually a walled garden. If you think about a metaverse, it's a walled garden. Only the metaverse operator, like GatherTown, is, as we talked, mentioned it earlier. They're the ones that decide who come in and don't come in. They're the ones that decide which crypto is going to work in there. They're the ones that decide which NFTs are going to work in there. So there's a bit, these metaverses are not open. They're not like walking into a store in the high street. These are controlled by someone.
Of course. Alpesh, the final question of the day, and I'll also put an input into this, is if anyone would like to shift career to Metaverse, what would be your suggestion? Are there any courses, certification to mark the way to the Metaverse career? Let me be really, really honest. There is nothing out there right now from a course certification. Even fintech, it took years for someone to develop a fintech MBA or a BSc in fintech. And even still, when I look at their course criteria, it doesn't cover what fintech is. And I think it's more about trial and error, to be honest. You have to go in, have a look at what the metaverse, understand it properly, understand the technology behind it, and obviously just learn from there and see what others are doing. It's the same way as what happened with fintech. A lot of people were just, and in my case, it's not me. I'm not a banker by profession. I was actually, I was doing marketing, and I was studying business management. I got into banking while I was an undergrad, doing business management with Alpesh actually, and that's when I got into banking. So again, there is no set route to it just yet. There may be in the near future, but again, it's going to take a lot of time for people to develop it once they get an understanding of what the metaverse is.
Oh.
Alpesh, if there's anything I missed there, please.
Yeah, so I would say, what do you mean by a career in the metaverse? I mean, what does it mean, right? I mean, it doesn't, if you're buying an NFT and selling an NFT, which is a crypto, there are loads of courses around that, right? Loads. If you're doing gaming, you don't need courses for gaming. There are courses around learning how to do gaming, and therefore learning how to build games on the metaverse is the leap. There are lots of courses about that. If you want to learn how to code on blockchain, there are lots of courses about that. So I would sort of ask the question, what do you mean by a course in the metaverse? Right? A metaverse is a place, it's a virtual place, but it's a place where you assemble and do services and products. And if you want to do things, then you're writing code. So if you're a software engineer and you want to be a software engineer, you can write code. If you want to build stuff in Unity, if you want to build stuff in Unity, go on a 3D gaming engineering course. Like if you want to go and learn gaming, like if you go and learn how to write Minecraft as the example. So there are a load of gaming courses out there, and they're positioning you really well to go into the metaverse, because if you use Minecraft or some other gaming, it is very similar to what the metaverse can do. So if you learn that, you can then go and use Unity to build those 3D metaverses as one example of technology you can use to build them. So I think the metaverse course, yes, basics on metaverse, probably not. I'm sure there are lots of training companies out there, but components of what the metaverse is composed of, there are lots of courses around that out there.
Cool. Thank you, Alpesh. We'll just open up the questions to the floor before we wrap up. So if anybody would like to ask any questions, please feel free to do it in the chat. If you do have any questions after this webinar, you're more than welcome to email myself at Alpesh, and we'll be happy to take it from there. So just before we end it, Alpesh, one word about the metaverse, or not word, one sentence about the metaverse.
One sentence, what? As in,
what do you think about the metaverse?
The internet? The future of Web3 is the future of the next generation, the future of the internet. I mean, that's what it is.
So for me, actually, I'll answer that question as well. I think the metaverse, again, as Alpesh has mentioned, it is the future, and it's the future for mainly the younger millennials, the Gen Z generation, and after that. Again, still a lot more that needs to be done for it to be mass adopted, but there is a big opportunity for the metaverse, and we as at MoneeMint, we're really excited to explore the opportunities, explore the use cases at MoneeMint, and see where it takes us. But as I think from there, we'll take it. We'll end the webinar over here. Again, thank you for everyone for joining. If you would like to ask any questions afterwards, you can feel free to send me an email, or you can send Alpesh an email. We will both follow up afterwards. I think there is one more question coming in actually, so we'll just answer that, Alpesh, before we end it. Actually, it's not a question. So thank you so much, everyone, and I hope you have a lovely afternoon and the rest of the week. Take care, guys.
Yeah, and want to find us, you can find me on LinkedIn, Alpesh Doshi, and obviously Hassan is Hassan on LinkedIn. On Twitter, my Twitter ID is at Alpesh Doshi, and company is at Fintricity. You can find us there. And yeah, if you connect, please let me know where you connected, where you found me, so that I know that it's not some random person just trying to connect and sell me something, which is what I get every day. I'm sure all of you get the same. And thank you very much, Hassan, for inviting me today. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Alpesh, for being there. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Bye, everyone.